Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the San Francisco Giants franchise mode with Nicky Kronk and Buster Posey trying to bring a championship back to the Bay Area. We are ready to get started with year zero, we are calling it. As you might recall from the last video, this year is basically to simulate the past year that just happened in real life in 2024. We made one change since that last video for Blake Snell. We gave him a 1-year deal so he hits free agency like he is right now in real life. Some of the contracts are set up that way. Like we went over, Matt Chapman has his extension already. But other people like Duvall and Webb, right, they're going to be a year behind as they were in like 2023. So it's just the game we have to play with the rosters right now and trying to make it as realistic as possible for the simulation. So I'll stop yapping over here and we can get started. We're just going to simulate through a lot of this stuff pretty basically. I just want to check the settings to make sure, okay, yeah, everything's still manual. So we're like I said, we're treating the season as 2024, so we're kind of going to be on autopilot for a lot of this. So I want the lineups on auto, I want scouting on auto, I want the drafting. We'll leave it manual, but we'll sim through it. Injuries on auto, everything else can stay manual. So we keep all of that. And yeah, we can get started with the simulation and see what this year, this universe brings for the Giants and for the rest of the teams across the league. Most of the time, I would say the playoff teams, especially for the NL, are pretty close to accurate as to the teams that made the playoffs this year. Sometimes there's some surprises. But most of the time, I mean, this first year, the teams are all pretty even as we have a 12-15 record to start the year. The Giants for this year, we're trying to, stay around that 500 mark, be a competitive team. But like we've been over, our division is just so stacked. The NL East is stacked. So that wild card spot is really hard to get into. And we're really eyeing that 2025 window to make a push for the playoffs and bring in some talent here. So you can see 23-34 record, not the best, actually tied with below the Rockies for our division. You'd hope for a little bit better than that. We'll take a quick look across the league and how teams are shaping up. So we'll start in the NL East. Got the Braves on top there, Cubs in the Central, and Diamondbacks surprisingly on top in the West. The wild card being the Padres, Phillies, and Dodgers, kind of what you'd expect. Those teams to be all in the playoffs. And the bottom of the NL, the Nationals, the Marlins, the Mets, surprisingly, are having a horrendous year. Us, the Giants, and a couple of other teams, Brewers, surprisingly, aren't doing that well. And then the AL East, we have the Tampa Bay Rays on top, the Twins, and the Astros. With the Rangers, Guardians, Orioles, and Royals, 4 teams locked up for that third wild card spot. The Yankees are lurking there. See if there's any surprises. Mariners are still in contention so far. Tigers, not far out of it. A couple moves, they can be in it. Red Sox, Blue Jays, A's, and White Sox are horrendous as they were in real life. Actually, I think they're on a better pace right now. So we'll keep simulating. Maybe at the end of June, we'll take a look at some of the stats for our team and across the league and just see how things are shaping up. But like we said this year, just simulating like we're in 2024. Get to the end of this year, and we'll really be able to make some moves. Now, this is interesting. We've been offered by the computer. Usually I have a rule to say no to these, and I probably will honor that. Jacob Melton, an outfield prospect for Wade Jr. at first. Like I said, this first year, we're keeping the roster as it is. If the computers make trades between themselves, nothing we can do. That just is what it is. And we'll take a look at some of those transactions here after the trade deadline to see if any teams made some moves. But yeah, we'll just keep going. Let's get past the All-Star game and see what some of these stats look like, what some of the league looks like as far as standings. No, I don't care about the farm. Okay, here's a big trade. So the Yankees acquire Alexis Diaz, closer from the Reds. I'm pretty sure he's got a couple years of control there as well, only 26. For Oswald Peraza, kind of a versatile defensive-minded infielder. And Chase Hampton, who I know is a pretty decent pitching prospect for them. So honestly, that's a pretty dang good deal for the Yankees there. As you know, they probably could have used someone like Alexis Diaz in that closing role for the playoffs this past year. So that's a big time addition to a team that's probably going to be in contention for the World Series this year. So here's the draft for 2023. A lot of the prospects, at least the top names, have already been added to teams, like Travis to the Guardians, first overall pick there. Charlie to the Rockies, prolific home run hitter. So we have some guys added already. This is basically the same draft, just with computer-generated players. So we're leaving it up to the computer. They did all the scouting. They're going to do the drafting, and whoever they end up signing is who we get added to the team. So we'll just leave it at that. We have no control, no say over any of that. Looks like we drafted a guy who was hurt. That's always awesome. It's always a good start for the franchise. And a couple of all-star games here. Okay, let's just take a look at who's playing in the home run derby. So we've got Judge, Mookie, Jordan, Seager, Acuna, Eloy Jimenez is getting a ton of playing time there in Baltimore. Matt Olson, Patrick Wisdom. Okay, so some names you'd expect, some surprising ones, I'd say. Eloy and Wisdom, even Seager. When he's healthy, he's one of the best in the game. So those are your home run derby participants. We'll go back, make sure that this is on auto to sign. Yeah, we want them to auto sign these guys here to make sure that gets taken care of. We'll simulate a day. And check out, we have another offer here from the Orioles. Seth Johnson, who is not much of a pitching prospect there. And then Taron Vavra. Not really much there for Yaz. Anyways, probably would say no to that even if I could accept the trade. So let's take a look at the All-Star voting. Leading the way, we have Aaron Nola, Max Fried, Erod Yamamoto, and Zach Gallen. So 2 Diamondback starters in there. A lot of good years from some of those guys there. Rockies get their all-star in there. Camilo Doval makes the cut. I wonder if he's our only all-star on this team. The Contreras brothers, Harper, of course. Nico Horner, Theo Estrada, okay. We got another all-star in there. That's good to see. Matt Chapman as well. So there's 3 from the Giants. Love to see it. Corbin Carroll having a monster year. Mookie Betts hitting .374 with 30 home runs. Are you kidding me? Even Acuna at .347, 25. Like, wow. Some big-time video game type numbers right there. So that's your NL All-Star crew. And, we'll take a look at the stats, standings, and everything after the trade deadline. We'll get a good recap of what this league has shaped up to be in this year 0 for the Giants. So the Yankees adding more bullpen weapons. Will Vest from the Tigers for Jones, second baseman, 25 years old. Mayaya, left field prospect, looks like another starting pitching prospect there. So Tigers trying to help out their farm system. A lot of those guys pretty young. It's a couple years away. Will Vest, he had a really good playoff run in real life. Looks like he's having a good year. Yankees really trying to load up for that postseason push. We'll see where they're at in the standings here in a minute. They're the only 2 acquisitions to come up as big-time deals. Okay, here's another one. C.J. Abrams, over to the Dodgers for Outman and Maddox Bruns, starting pitcher. Outman, kind of, I feel like could use a change of scenery in real life. That outfield's kind of jammed in some ways, and he hasn't really performed what you would hope out of your center fielder. Good defender, lacks a little bit with the bat, and CJ Abrams can come in and play shortstop for them, and he's pretty young too. That's insane that they just added him. I feel like they added him for nothing almost. Interesting move there by the Nationals. Willie Adames, goes to Seattle, so they get a big-time bat. Looks like they didn't really give up too much there either. Going back to Milwaukee, we'll see where Milwaukee sits. Devin Williams over to the Royals. So the Brewers selling here at this deadline. Grabbing Asa Lacy and Gavin Cross. Some two okay prospects for an elite closer. Some of these trades are always interesting, the way the computer does the math on those values. So, yeah, we'll send one more day so we can look at the draft picks as well here. All right. So we're into August. Trade deadline's behind us. We are still in bottom of our division. Pretty crazy that we're that bad of a team. We'll take a look at some of the overall standings here. So Phillies are in first of the NL East. Cubs are still leading in the Central. Diamondbacks in the West for the wild card. Padres, Braves, Dodgers, same teams you'd expect. The Brewers selling, 6.5 games back. That's going to be a tough hurdle to jump over. I can kind of see why the computer thought to sell there. The NL is kind of locked up. After the Brewers, it's 12.5 games and then some. Nobody really having a good year. It's kind of those 6 elite teams, and that's it. In the AL, the Yankees have reclaimed first place with a lot of their bullpen moves. Twins are still leading, and the Rangers have actually taken over in the West, with the Astros, Guardians, and Rays being your wild card teams, with the Mariners and Orioles only a half game out, Red Sox 1.5, Royals 2. Yeah, so the AL is a lot more up for grabs, kind of similar to how it was in real life. I feel like that last wild card spot had some movement in it late in the season. The White Sox have actually passed the Athletics for the worst team in the league. Okay, let's take a look at some of our team stats here. We'll look at the league stats at the end of the year, but see how some of these players are shaping up. So I like to sort by at-bats and just see kind of how people are doing. Theo Estrada was an all-star, having an okay year. Yaz, we hope for more, but he is aging out. Chapman, decent year, though. He's an all-star caliber defender, but yeah, some of those offensive numbers are taking a hit, unfortunately. Wilmer Flores, kind of like all he is a bat, so he's not hitting. That does poorly for us. Luciano, we know the bat will come, but he's getting good growth, which is important. Young-Hoo Lee is having a great year. 278, 16 home runs, even though he's dropping off there. Mark Canha, rough year for him. Tom Murphy, Elliot Ramos, Patrick Bailey. Yeah, we'd hope to unlock a little bit more there with his hitting, but he is still growing, so that's good to see. Conforto, Derek Hill, Wade Jr. having a decent year, and Encarnacion, just a bench player. Okay, so some of the pitching here. Logan Webb having a pretty solid year, 3.1 ERA and 145 innings. Kyle Harrison kind of getting rocked around a little. He's on the younger side, so he'll grow. He'll develop just by getting some of that playing time, only 21. Blake Snell, kind of the numbers you expect from him in this simulation with his walks being so low. Really hurts his overall stats usually. Robbie Ray's having a rough year. Jordan Hicks. Tristan Beck's pitching well for us. And the bullpen as a whole actually is pitching really well. Yeah, it's kind of the starting pitching and lack of offense, I would say, is why our team is playing so poorly. But we didn't really expect much out of this team this year. We'll kind of see how it all shapes up in the offseason. So take a look at what the computer grabbed for us. Dustin Fletcher, B prospect pitcher. I don't like how low the hits are as well as the stamina. For a starting pitcher, he might move to the bullpen there. But, decent numbers, 89 potential, 18 years old. I mean, that's a good pick, especially with his scouted potential being so low. Looks to be a better prospect than we thought there. Jack Jefferson, okay, kind of a nothing reliever. Andrew Tippery, I'm going to guess. Probably won't be much, but decent base stats there. Jesse Kelsley, this was the guy who was hurt. 43 overall. Big potential, but going to be a project to get him anywhere close to MLB ready. And Tom Flyer, outfield, kind of nothing, kind of just that speed type of player. We'll take a quick look across the league and see if anybody jumps out as an absolute stud of a draft pick across the board. Just kind of go through some of these teams. Chris Fernandez, closer, 93 potential, already 65, good velo, good base all around. Yeah, some of these closers, I feel like in drafting are kind of overpowered in terms of the other prospects. Sometimes they're a lot higher in their overall and potential compared to a lot of the position players or even other starting pitching. This guy looks like a decent defender of a center fielder. For Milwaukee, they also grabbed another closer who's got insane break, velo, and hits. Decent home runs and Ks as well. Jeff Jackson, okay. Billy Cox, what a name. Brandon Jimenez, okay, a couple pitching prospects for the Nationals. Jeff Berman, good speed guy there. Okay, here we go. David Bravo for the Marlins. This guy can mash. 75 overall, 18 years old, playing at the University of Oregon, we can say. Yeah, not a great defender, but I mean, he is playing left field. He has okay speed, but yeah, definitely kind of reminds me of a Pat Burrell in that way. Pretty good hitter. We'll see what the defense turns into. But yeah, that's a really good pick there for the Marlins. Braves don't look like they grabbed much. This looks like another decent pick here by the Mariners. Alfonso Pulido, center fielder, decent contact, and like that vision, discipline, clutch category I always pay attention to. He is 21, and the defense is kind of low for center fielder, but he's got the speed to help combat that. Humberto Calderon, starting pitcher. Okay. Good pickup by the Athletics there. Keep moving. Okay, looks like the Twins hit some guys. Elvis Machado, good outfielder, and as well as Ken Orr, a closer. Twins grabbed some nice players. Guy looked like he had some pop here. Yeah. No one necessarily earth-shattering. Okay, Brock Cruz here from Tampa. 18 years old, 92 potential from Canada, 4-pitch mix. Good velo, good base stats. Yeah, that guy's going to be a stud. Remember that name in a few years. Keep going along here. And we're back. Okay, so looking at everybody who was drafted, I mean, I'm pretty happy with Dustin Fletcher, just another starting pitching prospect to add to the mix. See if we can get his hits category boosted up there, as that can really determine, I feel, how some pitchers grow. If they have a low hits to start, sometimes it's hard to grow them, and definitely hard to have success in the MLB. I feel like that's a key statistic here. But yeah, we'll keep simming along. Oh yeah, the trades. Knew there was something I was forgetting. So let's take a look at some of these big trades. We know the big ones that kind of popped up there, but some of these minor ones across the board. We'll take a look. So yeah, the Dodgers and Nationals, that big one for C.J. Abrams. Cardinals get a couple of players there from the Angels. Kind of a mixed bag. Mariners grabbing a bat, trying to make a playoff push right there with Adames. Royals kind of the same way, grabbing Devin Williams. That'll bolster and solidify the back end of their their bullpen. Rays are in a playoff spot, and who did they trade with? Okay, they traded with the Red Sox here. I was seeing Mason Montgomery, and I was thinking Jordan Montgomery. I was like, he wasn't on the Red Sox. But okay, they grabbed Liam Hendricks, who I believe was on the Rangers to start the year, so he's shifted a couple of teams. This year, Yankees got Tristan Casas, okay, from the Red Sox. Yankees-Red Sox trade. That's wild. Oswaldo Cabrera and Vivas go to Boston. That's an interesting one. James Wood, okay, this is another big one. Goes to Tampa, kind of a prospect right now. The Nationals grab Dylan Lesko and Curtis Mead, some other big prospects there. I mean, they do have decent outfield prospects, but I always loved the idea of Wood and Cruz just, pairing that outfield together for years to come. Pretty nasty, in my opinion. Red Sox seem like they're very active here at this trade deadline or across the season. Cubs got Danny Jansen. Diamondbacks got Veerling, Drew Jameson, Kyle Finnegan. Okay. Wow. Okay, so Pirates grabbed Heston Kjerstad from the Orioles for Johan Oviedo, pitcher. That's an interesting trade. I feel like they could have gotten a lot more for Kjerstad. Yeah, that's a weird one. The Will Vest one we know about. Joey Wiemer, okay, to the Phillies. That's another interesting one. Some prospects being shifted around there. Twins got Seth Brown for a couple of prospects. Kenta Maeda went to the Cardinals. Andrew Vaughn to the Astros. I feel like he always gets traded to the Astros because they have nobody at first base. And he's the easiest one to go get from the White Sox. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up there in real life. The Alexis Diaz one we went over. Goldschmidt went early to the Brewers for Uribe and Bryce Wilson. So maybe kind of the reason the Brewers aren't in a playoff spot right now. Some of these early moves didn't help them. Xavier Isaac for Jordan Beck, kind of a prospect switch. The Rays were really active. Astros also got Joey Votto earlier in the year, really trying to address that first base situation. Jonathan India, okay, went to the Yankees. So we'll take a look at the Yankees here in a minute at their roster and see what they have there because they've made a lot of trades here. So did the A's, getting Cade Horton for Ryan Noda. That's a good pickup for them. Diamondbacks and Rangers making a trade after just playing each other in a World Series is kind of funny to me. Reese Hines by the White Sox for Ortega. Okay. Sam Huff for Gavin Lux. That's an interesting swap there. I mean, they have Will Smith locked up there in L.A. and Gavin Lux, versatile infielder for them. Cedric Mullins went to the Guardians for Tristan McKenzie and Chase DeLauder. How is this not brought up earlier in the year? That's an insane trade. Oh my goodness, the Orioles traded Jackson Holliday. Holy smokes. Drew Jones got... Wow. Okay, so there are a ton of big-name prospects that were traded this year. That's kind of unfortunate because it messes with this whole universe and landscape. But hey, this is an alternate reality, and this is the reality that we're playing in. So yeah, the Rays. We'll take a look at the Rays because those are some big moves. The Orioles making some changes. Joey Meneses went to the Diamondbacks for Drew Jones. Okay, so they traded James Wood and they got Drew Jones. So now they have Jones and Cruz for their outfield pairing. Maybe they like that a little bit better. Still weird one. Caleb Ketchup, always love that name. Okay. Wow. So some big trades went down for prospects across the board here. Not so much MLB ready guys, but a lot of shifting of prospects. Yeah, we'll take a look. It's really the AL East. The Yankees, the Orioles, and the Rays are the three teams that I want to go take a look at right now and kind of how their roster shakes up. Pretty crazy, some of those moves. So we'll start in Baltimore. We'll kind of see what they have. So, Burns is probably walking. Still have Gray run. They add McKenzie into that rotation. Couple years of control there. Still really solid. Decent bullpen. They got Mountcastle and Rushman. Trading away Holiday is crazy to me. Considering the fact that they have Westberg, but Westberg could shift over to second. And they had Junior Caminero, who is, in his own right, a really good prospect as well. So maybe they just believed in him more and his skill set. Colton Cowser, they got rid of Kerstead. So outfield looking a little bit weaker than it did on paper start the year, but they did add Chase DeLauder from the Guardians, who looks to be having a pretty decent minor league year. Oops, went the wrong way. Red Sox are in a playoff spot. We'll take a look here at the Yankees. So they still have Soto, Stanton, Judge, Chisholm, Grisham, Verdugo. Outfield's pretty much all the same. Volpe, J.D. Davis is their third baseman. They picked up Jonathan India, who's actually in the minors. That's insane. Glaber, who's having a pretty good offensive year. Casas, who they picked up to help out their first base position. I'm sure they wish they addressed that in real life. Still kind of weak behind the dish. Alexis Diaz definitely helps solidify some of that bullpen. Will Vest as well is your number one setup guy. So some good moves there, I feel like, from the Yankees. And the Rays, I feel like they just traded a bunch of prospects. Go through here. Yeah, they picked up Jackson Holiday. They have Liam Hendricks. They're in a playoff spot, too. So they're going to be fighting there with the Yankees. Silviani Diaz, Brandon Lau, and now Jackson Holiday to that mix. Christopher Morel, Austin Shelton, kind of weak at shortstop. Could always play. Jackson Holiday there if the coach is smart. James Wood becomes their everyday left fielder, it looks like. Jose Siri and Dylan Carlson hitting 300. Jose Siri's having a great year as well. And then Josh Lowe out there, right? Okay, so some interesting moves there by the AL East, shifting around a lot of players. But, yeah, that's the universe that we're in here. So we'll get through August, and we'll see what lies ahead here for the rest of this year, the rest of this 2024 Year Zero season. See if we can play spoiler down the line here to any of these NL teams trying to make a playoff push, bring our record back up to something salvageable. So I'm going to go back in here because it's 40-man call-up time. And I'm going to set the roster moves to auto. Make sure contracts are back to manual. And we'll continue on here through the end of the season to find out who are going to be your playoff teams, who is going to be your World Series champion this year. All right, AAA didn't make the playoffs. AA did make the playoffs. Okay, so maybe we got something to root for here. Yeah, we'll stop simulating. Take a look here at AA. Kind of see how they play out. We lose the first two, and we get swept. All right, well, way to make the postseason, boys. Somebody did well. And the Giants in 2024 Year Zero finished with a 65-97 record. Pretty ugly record, if I do so say. They weren't that bad in real life, but hey, this is the universe that we're in. So In the AL, you have the Rangers with the 1 seed and the Twins number 2. Interesting how that's sorted out. Baltimore and Tampa taking on each other. Then Houston and the New York Yankees in the other wild card. That would be a heated 3-game series between two teams that hate each other. In the NL, you have Atlanta and San Diego with the 1 and 2 seed respectively. Diamondbacks and Dodgers facing off. Winner of that goes to Atlanta. And then the Cubs and Phillies in the other wild cards. So kind of what you'd expect there in the NL. AL a little bit different, but like I said, some of the injuries, some of the players, that weren't playing this year, especially for the Rangers, are in here. All the moves that Tampa made and Baltimore. Baltimore was in the playoffs, excuse me. Minnesota getting in there. They're always a streaky team of how they simulate. So that's the end of the year. We'll take a look at some of these overall statistics across the board real quickly, just to go through and see how some of our team did. We'll go through some of the growth as well, and just see if anybody really stuck out. So Young-Hoo Lee looked to have a pretty good year there for us. Luciano, like we said, the bat's going to come. He's a defender first. He's 21 years old. We're learning to play the position at the major league level. Patrick Bailey ended up hitting .243 with only 4 home runs. Defensive-minded catcher, one of the best in the game. If we can look to grow that offense over the next couple of years, that'll be really beneficial to us. Luis Matos looked like he got called up and hit pretty well. And that's about it to call out from the hitting. Logan Webb had a really good year. Everyone else kind of stayed around the similar numbers that they were. Looks like the bullpen got hit up a little bit more in that second half run. Camilo Duvall with 31 saves. Not much to save there for us. But yeah, that's kind of how our statistics shape up. Let's look at some of the league leaders here. So Mookie Betts was hitting 370-something, finishes 348. Absolutely ridiculous. Keep going through some of these major stats here. Mookie leading the league in home runs and average is insane, and his teammate Shohei beats him out for the RBI. Wow, so he just missed out on the Triple Crown because Shohei Ohtani, his own teammate, had to have an extra RBI. Oh, that's got to be killer, but I'm sure they'd be happy with that in real life. And the top 3 in runs are Freddie, Shohei, Mookie. That offense is just unbelievable, as it is in real life. Go through here. Some of the pitchings. Max Fried leading in wins. Tanner Scott, a full year there in San Diego in this universe, did really well. Looks like Max Fried had a really good year for Atlanta. Paul Skeens pitching a full year in Pittsburgh. 242 strikeouts. And how many innings? 207. A workhorse dynamo. He's already up to 98 overall. This guy's the real deal in real life and the video game. Keep going along here. See who kind of led it in WAR. So pitching WAR actually went to Musgrove. And then batting WAR to Corbin Carroll with a 9 WAR season. Incredible. He had equally as good of a year as Mookie in some regards. So that's good to see. Seager with a full year. Had a great numbers. Judge, your leader in home runs and RBI. Seager right behind him. Runs scored, him and Soto. Hessery Ruiz actually plays in the MLB, so he stole a bunch of bases. Soto leading in walks, no surprise. With most of these statistics, Max Scherzer actually leads the league in wins, even though he's down to 72 overall, had quite the drop-off. That Rangers offense must have carried him. Cody Bradford, of all people, is right behind him with a 2.15 ERA, 18 wins. See, this is my problem with this game and sports video games in general. I know he's a C potential at 25, which is still young, especially in baseball, to grow and get better and really get into your prime. This guy just had a 2.15 ERA season, pitched 142 innings. Looks to have been his first year, 18 wins. Even saved 2, held 4, looked to be like a versatile pitcher for them. And yet, across the board, his stats other than home runs are dropping off. Like, this guy should have shot up to an 84 with that kind of statistics. If, you don't want to grow his potential, that's one thing, but that's so frustrating to see sometimes with the way growth happens in sports video games. Rant over. If anyone else relates to that, yeah, it's just a frustration that I've had with how they determine who grows and who doesn't grow. So Garrett Cole leads in WAR and Altuve tied with Judge. So yeah, kind of the statistics you'd expect from a lot of those guys. Healthy years, chugging along. So we'll take a look at some of our growth before we get into the playoffs and see who kind of did what for us. So Logan Webb, see, that's what I'm saying. He had a really good year, not as good as the year before, so maybe you want to chalk it up to that. But yeah, he didn't really grow much there. But hey, he's still our guy. Blake Snell walking in free agency like he did. Robbie Ray, see, had a 5 ERA season, 175 innings, 7-17 record, and yet he's growing in overall, and Cody Bradford isn't. That's kind of my point I'm trying to make here with this, and you could say it's the potential and where they're supposed to be in their overall rating, but I think it should. I think the statistics on the season should impact their rating growth a little bit more. Sometimes they grow, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they drop off, sometimes they don't drop off, depending on the seasons they have. It just kind of feels random, and there's no way to plan around it. Like Kyle Harrison, I know he's young. This is his rookie year, he's 21, so maybe he's just going to grow regardless, just of playing time. But a 5 ERA, I don't know if it deserves that much of growth there. Jordan Hicks, okay. Birdsong grew nicely. He might make a push for being on the Major League roster come next season. Whiston Hunt, I hope that's how I say it. I should probably look it up. Good growth out of him. Seth Corey. Murphy, okay. Some of these C pitchers actually grew pretty well. Mason Black there. Bryce Eldridge is the other guy I was really focused on. Okay. So some good growth overall there from our starting pitching. That's good to see. Some of the bullpen did well. Some of it did poorly. Definitely an area we could look to address in the offseason. We don't really have much in terms of guys we're looking to grow. And Duvall had a really good year, 31 saves, blew 5 of them, 2.18 ERA. Really good year out of a closer. We know Patrick Bailey grew pretty well across the board. Blake Sable looked to have grown pretty well as well. All right, so we're getting some good growth there out of our catchers, which is nice to see. Wilmer Flores had a rough year. Wade Jr., okay. We don't really have much else in terms of first base. Dio Estrada, decent growth there. We'll see what kind of player he turns into over the next year or two. Cackle, Walton, 28. Walker Martin, okay, some good growth overall there. Matt Chapman kind of dropped offensively. That hurts a little. Hopefully we can raise that up with a good year next year. I don't really have much else here at third. Marco Luciano, good growth across the board there. Like I said, the bat's going to come with him. He's only 21. We just have to be patient and allow him to play to get that growth and put him in positions to have success. Michael Conforto, pretty sure he's a free agent. Yep. Good year to get a good contract. I don't know if we'll be bringing him back, but he had a decent year. Mark Canha really struggled here in San Francisco. Young-Hoo Lee hit pretty well, but he's dropping off a little. It's a little frustrating. Yaz down to a C. He's 32, going to be pushing 33. So that's kind of expected. Elliot Ramos, some decent growth. Luis Matos, some good growth out of him. So, yeah, I think we got some good young outfielders there. At least can push for a play or a roster spot to start the season next year And some of these other guys, yeah, some decent growth overall. Okay, so by and large, some good growth out of players we hoped for. So yeah, let's get these playoffs underway and kind of see who out of the AL East between the Yankees, Orioles, and Rays made the best decisions there with some of their moves. So the Yankees punched their ticket, beat Houston in 3, going to take on Texas, and Baltimore sweeps Tampa. Going to Minnesota now. You have the Dodgers beating the Diamondbacks in 3 games, and the Cubs beat the Phillies in 3 games. Interesting circumstance there. Okay, it's weird that the Dodgers are a wild card team in this universe, and they're taking on Atlanta in the DS. That's a tough one for baseball fans across the board. Some of these series, okay, 2-1s. Everybody went 2-1. The whole NL went 2-2. Big game here, and the Yankees and Orioles punched their ticket to the ALCS, both taking down Texas and Minnesota respectively in 4 games. We have the winner-take-all Game 5 for both NL series, and it's the Dodgers over Atlanta and the Padres over the Cubs. That sets up your NLCS, folks. Battle between 2 hated teams. Both CSs are between divisional rivals, so this would be a fun one. In real life, I feel like a lot of viewership would go up between these 2 teams, not a lot of travel. You'd have your East Coast and your West Coast. Yeah, this would be a fun one to watch go down. Sim a couple games here, okay? Yankees go up 3-0. San Diego up 3-1, and they take down LA, go to the World Series. So it's not going to be a real-life matchup between the Dodgers and Yankees. Baltimore fighting all the way back to even the series, and the Yankees do pull it out. Okay, so the Yankees versus Padres in the World Series 2024. Who is going to take home the trophy? 1 apiece to start. The Yankees take Game 3. San Diego takes 4 and 5, up 3-2 in the World Series. Yankees tie it, Game 7, and it goes to San Diego. Congratulations to the Padres, our divisional rival. Those words taste like vinegar coming out of my mouth. But they win. They win it all. And Jerickson Profar is your World Series MVP. He also won the postseason MVP. Looked to have a really good year for them. Juan Soto on the other end. 7 home runs, 21 RBIs is ridiculous for the Yankees. So go through some of these awards quickly. We'll start with the NL. Start with the Silver Sluggers, Acuna, Yelich, Mookie. Corbin Carroll not getting on that list is a crime, but that's the way it worked out. Somehow Trey Turner gets it over Francisco Lindor, even though his numbers are better across the board there. Again, some of the awards and how they determine them is always interesting to me as well. The Rockies had 2 guys win a Silver Slugger. Yeah, that's interesting. Shohei, of course, at DH and Gold Glove. Jacob Young, in real life, is the guy I'm thinking of who's a stud in the outfield in Washington. Having a brain fart there, but yeah. Doesn't look like we brought home any hardware here in San Francisco. Not surprising overall. Tyler Rogers, a reliever, actually getting in the conversation for Gold Glove at pitcher. It's funny. Rookie of the Year going to Corbin Carroll, right? Because it's technically the 2023 or 2023 season. Yeah, so I mean, he did get it, but yeah, Paul Skeens in there, Yamamoto makes sense. Alvarado, okay. Cy Young goes to Max Fried. Yeah, he had an incredible year. MVP, of course, to Mookie. We knew that. Let's go to AL real quick. Judge, of course. Burns, yep. All those made sense. Kirby Yates actually had he had an incredible year. Good for Kirby. Yanier Diaz takes it home here in this universe because, of course, a bunch of the rookies had already technically played a year. But yeah, let's continue on through here. Going through the Gleyber Torres getting a Gold Glove. I feel like we should have nerfed his fielding a little bit before this simulation, but that's the way Sony decided to put together the rosters. So we'll take that what it is. Varsho, of course, one of the best defensive outfielders in the league. Just going through Silver Sluggers real quick. Looked like Judge had that last Gold Glove. Of course, Seager had a monster year. Yeah. Okay. So those are your awards. That's how the season plays out. Let's get to the start of the off season and kind of see where we are as a franchise here now that we are back in the driver's seat alongside of Buster to take on this challenge of building this team up and putting things together. So Max Scherzer hangs up the cleats. Incredible career for one of the best pitchers of this past, decade, 2 decades. 2,800 innings, 3,300 strikeouts, 3.18 ERA. Absolute dominance from Max Scherzer. Hall of Fame for sure. Got his ticket punched. Okay, so we're here now. This is interesting. All right, so we get to hire a new manager right off the bat. Usually, when I do these the first year, I kind of let all of the coaches that are here stay, and then come the second round of off-season moves is when we're free to make coaching changes, scouting changes, things like that. We kind of just let it play out. So this is big news for us being able to hire a manager right off the bat. I always like to go for somebody who's got an attribute grade of A and just like no minuses. I don't really know if this has a true impact on anything whatsoever. But yeah, that's usually what I go for because the A helps you sign players or keep players because they care about that attribute grade. And then the minuses, if they do hurt, try to avoid it. I kind of like this guy. I always like the clutch aspect. Plate vision's good. Don't like the -1 on home runs, but we're going to pitch him an offer. We'll go 2 years, and we've got some money. We'll give him a $5 million deal there to be the manager of the Giants. We'll kind of see what we do there. Oh, and our first base coach. Again, I just kind of try to find somebody who's A. We'll give him a 3-year deal there. All right, so Blake Snell, of course, hitting free agency in real life. I mean, 1-year deal. He's only looking for $11 million. It's kind of crazy. I would give him like a qualifying offer, so I feel like they did that in real life, but I think he might accept it if I do it. So I kind of just want him to go to free agency just to have some sort of realism behind it. I don't know if he would accept it. I mean, he is 31, but it's going to be $20-some million, and it's going to be more he makes unless he's getting a 5-year deal. Conforto, I feel like we have a decent amount of outfielders. And, he's 30. He could help us, but he's similar to Yaz, and I'd rather play some of those younger guys, so I don't feel like we need to re-sign him. Tyler Matzek didn't have the best year. Is just looking for a depth role, but he's 33. I don't like the walks. Yeah, I don't feel like we need to re-sign him. Mark Canha, 35. Had a really rough year. Here in San Francisco, we can definitely let him walk. So I think we just let those guys walk and see what's out here in free agency. So we got the first base coach and the manager. It's nice to see. Yeah, see $19 million, and the 1-year offer we could give him was $11 million, and he was going to take that. So yeah, we'll just deal without the extra draft pick. We got some of those earlier with the extra draft, so not too worried about it. And yeah, here we are, free agencies. So yeah, this is probably where we'll leave it for this video. Set it up for next time, see if there's anything we want to make moves on. If there's anybody out there in free agency that we should go target and put something together. So we'll kind of take a look here overall at what we have in our contracts. Like Duvall's an interesting one, right? Like we could go pretty long term with him and not a horrible asking price. He is a pretty lights out closer. He's only 26, coming off a really good year. 3 years of ARB. I mean, that could be a guy you lock in long term. Theo Estrada, don't really know much about what he's going to be. He kind of fits that window a little bit to help bridge the gap. So maybe a 2-3 year deal there, or we just go 1 year. Yaz is probably just a 1 year deal. He's 33, starting to drop off, but I'd like to just ride him out for 1 more year and see what we might be able to fetch at the trade deadline, assuming we're not going to be in the playoffs. Wade will definitely bring back, probably on a 1 year deal as well. Tyler Rogers had a pretty decent year. I mean, we need bullpen help. He is older, but just ride him for 1 more year. Again, another trade deadline guy. Patrick Bailey's interesting because he got 2 years of renewal and then 3 years of ARB. He's one of the best defensive catchers in the game. I mean, you could get him really cheap through those years, and he doesn't get that overly expensive, right? So if you want to lock him in, let's say to like an 8-year deal, it does have some risk to it because of the lack of offense. But I don't feel like that contract would be horrible in, let's say 4 years' time if we want to move on from Patrick Bailey. Definitely a team out there who would take his skill set as a defensive catcher. So that's an interesting one. Kyle Harrison probably going to run a 1 year deal, see if he can improve on his 5 ERA there. Heli Ramos. I feel like a lot of these guys will give 1 year deals too because they're young. We don't really want to lock them into super long-term deals without knowing what they're going to become. The one exception may be Marco Luciano because he does play shortstop, but the lack of offense there does worry me. And if we were to go super long term, I mean, he does get up there a little bit in price. I mean, we definitely save money as well as our budget. We could front load these contracts and then save money in a couple of years when we're really trying to add those big free agents. So a lot of different ways we could play this as we enter free agency. And yeah, some big names out here that we could add that would certainly make a difference here for us in San Francisco, like the likes of which of Corbin Burns, Max Fried, Shane Bieber. I mean, all 3 of those guys would really help out our starting rotation. I believe they're all California guys too. Yep, all 3 of them. Shane Bieber doesn't really care about that. Max Fried, and we got a good coach there. Yeah, Corbin Burns always loves playing in California. So I feel like we could realistically go out there and get someone like Corbin Burns and lock him up. Pair him with Logan Webb, I feel like would be a massive uptick to our pitching. I mean, imagine if we get Corbin Burns and Max Fried, the likes of which of that with Webb, Kyle Harrison, Robbie Ray. I mean, you're talking about one of the best rotations, at least top 3 there in the league. Flaherty too. You could bring back Snell, Walker Buehler, Nate Dogg. I mean, Means had a great year. Pavetta. A lot of good starting pitching out here we could go for. We did mention the bullpen could use some help. There's some decent arms here to add. Closer, we kind of already have our closer. Catching, we're fine at. First base is an interesting one. We have Wade Jr., who we could play there. We still have, blanking on his name, Wilmer Flores. So I'm not, I'm not looking for a first baseman, and none of these guys really stand out to me as a must-sign good upgrade there. Someone like Ryan O'Hearn, I mean, he hit pretty well there in Baltimore. But someone like Pete Alonso, I don't feel like his bat plays, even though it's a video game, in the Giants park. Christian Walker, a vet, but yeah, he seems pretty set on going back to our rival there. But I mean, hey, we could poach him, so that would be a good one. Altuve, second base is a position. I mean, we have Estrada, and he played pretty well there overall, but it could be a position where we look to supplement or add additionally. Bregman there, probably not going to go after anyone at third. I mean, we have Matt Chapman. Shortstop, again, we want to play Luciano. Willie Adames would fit, even though he's kind of not statistically where you'd want him to be as the shortstop. The arm accuracy kind of low. Good fielder, good arm strength, decent speed, discipline. He can hit. Yeah, he's an interesting one to go after. Of course, you have Profar here, who just won the World Series MVP. It's funny sometimes the way the contracts work out, too. He would make so much more in real life if that happened. Teoscar would certainly be a big bat to add to our outfield. Tyler O'Neill. But again, we have a pitching-friendly ballpark, so I do value the defensive side, and that kind of seems like what some of the team has been built around already. So I kind of like to honor that a little. We don't necessarily need outfield, but someone like Juan Soto, for example, he is a generational player, and if you're talking about getting somebody to really make a name, really bring this team around them, you could offer him the max. I mean, go get him and Burns and still have cash left over to fill in some of the roster there. So a lot of different ways we can approach this offseason. Bring in someone like Max Kepler to be a platoon guy, but we kind of have a lot of guys like that. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments on how we should set up this team for the future. We have, the ability to add and really change the landscape of this team. But like I said, we're looking at our budget. We're looking at where realistically our window is. You always want to target the window to win. I still think with what the Dodgers have, with what the Padres have, the Diamondbacks, I think it's going to be really hard for us to shoot up to third in the division this year and push for that wild card spot. I don't think we're there just yet. I think we're a year away, maybe 2 years from really hitting that stride. You have Robbie Ray's contract off the book, Rogers, Flores. There's really not much else on here that's bad money per se. So yeah, we'll see where we should take this team. We have money to spend. We do want to be competitive. We sure as hell want to be a lot better than 65 and 90-some, whatever we were this year. But we want to give the young guys a chance to continue to play while still being competitive and adding some pieces to this puzzle to help us for next year's free agency and the year after, where we really can go out there and get some of these big names. So that'll conclude episode number 2, and we'll see you back for episode 3.